Hello, everybody, and welcome into a new episode of Capitol View, a webcast brought to you by the Daily Journal and djournal.com. I'm your host, Brad Locke, joined from Jackson by Bobby Harrison, our Capitol Bureau Chief. And as we do every Monday here, we're talking about what's going on with the state lawmakers down in the state capitol. Of course, the 2016 session has come to a close about a week and a half ago, but always still plenty to talk about. Including some bills headed toward Governor Bryant that he's got to sign pretty soon. We'll talk about that. Going to talk about some the business tax situation, decrease in business tax collections, and the continued fallout from House Bill 1523, known as the religious objection bill. So, Bobby, first, how are you?
All right, Brad. I'm actually coming to you from the offices of the Mississippi Business Journal, a couple of blocks from the Capitol. There were some technical problems at the Capitol with the internet. And, the Business Journal is one of our sister companies owned by Journal Inc. And they were nice enough to set me up so I could talk to you from their offices today.
Well, good, Bobby. And, we could talk about all this that I just mentioned, or we could just talk about the concert you went to over the weekend. You seem to enjoy that, seeing Sir Paul McCartney there. Where'd you see him at?
We went to Little Rock. He was at the Coliseum, actually in North Little Rock. My wife and me and my brother-in-law and his wife. We were four of about 15,000 people who were a little intimate concert to see Paul McCartney. I mean, he's 73 years old now, so he's a little bit different, but he doesn't look a lot different than he did back in 1964 or 65 when he performed in where was the first concerts? I think they're in Washington, D.C., there, whatever, the old football stadium, whatever it was called. And he put on quite a show.
That was before my time, Bobby, I have to say.
Well, you probably weren't born, but I was a young child. I can't remember that, but everybody's got to appreciate the Beatles.
Oh, certainly. Well, Bobby, we will talk about what's going on down there in Jackson. That affects people statewide, of course. First, let's talk about what's headed towards Governor Bryant's desk with the session over. He's got some bills to sign. He signed some already, but there's other ones, and he's got some deadlines facing him. Some different deadlines. Bobby, kind of take us through it.
It just depends on the time. I mean, he has, and I'm not sure. I'm not at my desk right now, so I don't have that. But he has quite a bit of time. Once the session ends, he has a longer. I think during the session he has 5 days to sign a bill, whereas out of session he has like maybe 10 days or more from the time it reaches his desk. And so all the budget bills are going to start coming due late this week, but more so next week. The tax bill, which I think is probably the most consequential legislation of the session, that's going to be due, I think, on the 13th. So so there's just a litany of bills. The bond bill, the big bond bill that has the money for the Vietnam Wall memorial, the replica of the Vietnam Wall that's to be built in at Veterans Park in Tupelo. That bill will be due for his signature next week, I think. So there's, while the session's over, the wrap up of the session, there's still quite a bit to do. So any of those bills theoretically could still die if Governor Bryant decides not to sign them.
And do we expect anything like that? I mean, you had the Republican supermajority, so most of the bills that passed, I'm sure, are kind of aligned with what Phil Bryant wanted. But is there anything we should look for? Maybe he won't sign, or expect any surprises?
The tax bill. We talked to him. Caught him in the hall near the end of the session, and it sounded as if he wasn't crazy about the way the tax bill was written and what taxes are going to be cut. But I would be totally surprised if he actually vetoed that legislation. And they normally when you have hundreds of bills reaching his desk, there'll be something that'll be vetoed. But it's normally, I mean, I'd be surprised if any consequence. A lot of times there's a veto where, so many bills are coming to his desk, and there may be a House bill and a Senate bill that does the same thing. So he'll veto one of those bills. So, but as far as anything as consequence, I would be surprised if there's any vetoes this year.
You mentioned that tax bill. He has until May 13th to sign or veto that legislation. And as you said, he's expected to sign it, but has expressed some reservations. And I kind of want to segue into that, Bobby. The business business tax situation. Business tax collections are down, and now you're having these tax cuts, and we've talked about this a little bit before, Bobby. But Brian has concerns about it. I'm sure he's not the only one.
Yeah, I mean the bill will over a 10, 11-year period will reduce taxes about $415 million in today's dollars. That's between 7 and 8% of the budget. So it's a consequential bill, and the major portion. I mean, there's an personal income tax cut that we'll all get if we pay personal income tax, but the biggest part of the tax cut will be eliminations of some business taxes. That'll be about I think about $260 million in business taxes that'll be eliminated over multiple years. And this comes at a time where business taxes, the taxes paid by corporations and businesses has been declining, have been declining. I went back, I'm no mathematician, Brad, but thanks to that internet thing, I was able to do some high math, and I went back and plugged some numbers into a program in the internet. And in 2 years ago, the taxes paid by businesses, the franchise tax and the income tax paid by businesses represented about what are my numbers here?
About 714 million, wasn't it?
Yeah, which was 13% of the total state revenue collections. Yeah. Now for this upcoming for the budget year that starts on July 1st, it's projected that business taxes are going to represent 10.2% of the total general fund collection. So that's a drop of 3%, which is pretty significant. And then you have this major tax cut coming on for businesses coming online that's going to further reduce that. And so that's, so this is something that's sort of changing the taxing structure of the state and putting more of the tax burden on individuals and less on businesses and corporations. That's going to be happening over multiple years, and that's just something that we should think about, and maybe that's a good thing from a policy perspective. I don't know, but that's just what's happening. And right now, the biggest bulk of our revenue comes from the sales tax, the 7% tax on most retail items. That represents probably about 37% of the total general fund. Personal income taxes that a lot of us pay is about 34% of the total general fund. And then the business tax was up to 13%. And now it's going to be down to close to right around less than 10.5%. So it's a big change in our taxing structure that's taking place. That change is already underway because of tax cuts passed, business tax cuts passed during the past 4 years. And this is just going to accelerate that reduction with the legislation passed during the 2016 session that's pending the governor's signature.
Yeah, I was looking at your story from I think it was Friday, and you mentioned the number 714 million from the 2015 fiscal year, and then you mentioned the upcoming fiscal year 2017. The estimate is 565 million in corporate and business taxes. Yeah. And that's $150 million reduction, Bobby. And again, you mentioned previous tax cuts. I guess that's the main driving force behind that. And now we've got more cuts past this session. I know, if you talk to Tate Reeves, Lieutenant Governor Tate Reeves, he's going to tell you it's a long-term deal. But at what point can we really tell definitively how much difference this is making, positive or negative?
Well, only thing I can tell you is, our revenue collections have been sluggish and for the past couple of years. And, part of it is the sales tax collections have been down some. And also we're hit harder than some states because of the drop in energy prices. So our oil severance taxes have been down some too. That's not a big part of the total revenue collections, but it is several $1 million, and that's been down. And then we passed some pretty significant tax cuts during the past 4 years, and the state economists and other people have said that has impacted revenue collections. And I can tell you, we were talking about, I was in Arkansas this past weekend to see the Paul McCartney concert, and my wife is from there, and so we were visiting friends and family, and I was seeing some news accounts over there where, their revenue collections are strong. They're up over there. And that's, for most of the nation, that's what's happening right now. Revenue collections are up, but that's not what is happening in Mississippi right now. And that's it's against that backdrop that the governor is expected to sign the largest tax cut in the state's history in the next few days.
Well, and speaking of business in the state, could see some businesses, the overall business landscape perhaps hurt by this House Bill 1523, known as the Religious Objection Bill, or the Freedom of Conscience Bill, whatever you want to call it, Bobby. But been a lot of backlash from business leaders, not just in the state, but around the country. In fact, we had a story last week where I think it was like 75 CEOs and business leaders from around the country have called on Mississippi to repeal the law, which Governor Bryant has already signed. So I don't think we're going to see the fallout abate anytime soon, are we, Bobby?
Well, I mean, that's has kind of struck me. There was apparently protests at the Capitol this weekend. And then also this weekend, there was a letter signed by business leaders and religious leaders and other political leaders from throughout the state expressing support for equal rights, if you will. And a number of Methodist ministers a couple of weeks ago did the same thing, sent out a letter that was published in a bunch of newspapers and whatnot, also expressing concern that the state not be discriminatory or be viewed as discriminatory. And, the key point is, this now law purports to do a number of things, but the main thing it would do is allow a circuit clerk to not issue marriage licenses to same-sex couples. Now, the circuit clerk's supposed to find somebody else to issue that license, but how that's all going to work is not quite clear yet. Matter of fact, the people who brought some of the lawsuits that led to the ruling that same-sex marriage was a constitutional right has sent letters to our Attorney General and our Governor Bryant asking for them to provide clarifications just how the law would work, because I mean it sounds like they're getting ready to go to court to challenge the law, even perhaps before it takes effect. I think the effective date is July 1st. So I mean, so it's the issues surrounding this bill from the 2016 session, or I don't think they're going to go away anytime soon.
All right, Bobby. Well, good stuff from down there. We'll keeping track of that story. No doubt it's not going to go away anytime soon. And anything else going on in Jackson, Bobby will be on top of it. You can follow him on Twitter at BobbyHarrison9. Follow me on Twitter if you want, at Brad Locke. And again, we do this webcast every Monday afternoon. The legislative session has come to an end, but as you know, as we just discussed, several things still on the table to talk about, including what's going to be coming across Governor Bryant's desk, and we'll have more to talk about next week in that regard as well. And until next Monday, thank you all for tuning in. And Bobby, glad you enjoyed the concert, and hope you have a good week.
It was good. Thanks, Brad.
See y'all later.